This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and recently we looked at $299 laptops. One was a Chromebook, the Lenovo 100S Chromebook. The other was the Acer CloudBook 14, which runs Windows 10. And this time we're going to look at what happens if you spend a little bit more, $299, around there. There are different variations. Some are a little cheaper, some are a little bit more. But this is the Chromebook you should buy, unless you've got a lot of money. You can buy a Chromebook Pixel, which is an awful lot of money for a Chromebook, in my opinion. Anyway, this is the Toshiba Chromebook 2. It has a lot going for it. The $299 configuration is a real sweet spot. Right here we have one that's $329, and this runs a faster Celeron processor, but it has the full 1920 by 1080 IPS display here. It looks really good. You know, that's the problem with a lot of Chromebooks. They have crappy displays, and you just know, like, your eyes are just gonna die 10 years sooner than they should if you keep looking at that kind of screen. This is a very nice screen right here. And shockingly, for the money, you even get things like a backlit keyboard. Usually in regular laptop land, often you have to spend $700, $800 to get that. So it's pretty well appointed. And it's a 13.3-inch size, which is the sweet spot for a lot of people. I mean, that's why 13.3-inch Ultrabooks are so popular. Not too big, not too small. And the other ones we looked at, they were 11.6 inches and 14 inches. So this one does fall right in the middle. It weighs 3 pounds. It has dual band Intel Wi-Fi inside, Bluetooth 4.0. We're going to look at it now. So this is the Toshiba Chromebook 2 CB35. Specifically, our model is the CB35-C3330 model. And there are about 3 different configurations of this. The lowest end is $249, and that one gets you a 1366 by 768 display. And then there's a middle model that ups it to a full HD display, and then there's the model that we have for $29 more. It gets you a backlit keyboard. Oh, and there is actually a 4th model with an actual Core i3 CPU inside, which probably for a lot of people buying a Chromebook is a little bit overkill. How often do I get to say a Core i3 is overkill, right? But Chrome OS is pretty lightweight. Why is that? Well, the good thing about Chrome OS is that it's an operating system that is protected. Not unlike your Android smartphone. You can't delete Windows DLL files, shall we say, the equivalent in Windows world. You can't really screw up the OS. You can just reset it and log back in, and all of your stuff is there because it's all on the cloud. Viruses really so far haven't been a concern. So in that way, it's a pretty maintenance-free device that nobody can really screw up. So if you want to give this to your kids, to your absolute technophobic relatives, that sort of thing, it's perfect for it. The drawback is that you pretty much need an internet connection to do anything. Everything you do is in a browser window. It's called Chrome OS because basically you're living inside of the Chrome web browser. Now there's add-ons, there's extensions, there's stuff that you can do with that, like photo editing, games, you know, casual games I'm talking about. We're not going to be playing Battlefield 4 on this sort of thing. So it doesn't mean that all you're going to do is just being staring at web pages all day long. You can actually do stuff. You got Google Photos, you got Google Docs, all that sort of thing for it. So you can do stuff with it. The stuff is somewhat limited compared to a regular PC. But one of the selling points for the Chromebook is that it's inexpensive. Granted, there are a few exceptions, like Google's own Pixel Chromebook, but the Toshiba here is a nice balance between affordability and having some nice creature comforts and having it not be a snail, not really being super duper slow. Now, among Chromebooks, you know, it's sort of the race of the slow versus the slower, granted, compared to what you see in average PC hardware, but the demands aren't that high. So if you go for the lowest possible configuration with only 2 gigs of RAM, you've got limited multitasking, you're going to notice things like web browser pages, they take a while to load. If you just take a step up to this $299 model, you're getting a lot more speed. It's noticeable. When I use this, the first thing I did is I loaded our website, and it's like, oh, well, it loads as fast as a current decent quality smartphone. And the lowest end Chromebooks, and even the lowest end Windows so-called cloud books, the netbooks, they don't always load web pages so fast. So that's the story behind the Toshiba Chromebook 2 here. In terms of build quality and beauty here, you know, it's still an inexpensive product. You're talking something around $300 or so. You're not going to get chic design, but it's not too bad looking. This is a silvery plastic with that kind of finish. You can hear my nail on it, kind of a crosshatch pattern, so that makes it a little bit grippy. You know, it's plastic. There's some flex here, but it is the kind of plastic, like I said with the last Chromebooks that we looked at in Cloudbooks, it is fairly impact absorbing, and it will deform and pop back rather than just kind of crack on you. You got some vents on the back here. And little attention to taper and trying to make it look decent. It's not the ugliest thing we've ever seen. Certainly it's not too bad looking. A bunch of Phillips head screws hold the bottom on. That's nice, but really, unless you need to service the battery, there's not much that you can do here. The storage on Chromebooks is eMMC flash storage, which is sort of like a permanently installed eMMC card, which is akin to an SD card, and RAM is soldered on board, so you're not going to be doing upgrades on this guy. Like I said in our other recent review, you really have to look to the $500 to $600 machines if you want ones that start to have RAM slots, hard drive bays, that sort of thing, if you want to tinker and kind of hot rod your affordable laptop. Ports are standard for a Chromebook here. We have our USB 2.0 port. We have an SD card slot. That's where you plug the power in. 720p webcam, built-in microphones. This is the combo audio jack, a USB 3.0 port, full-size HDMI, and our lock slot. So again, that's standard stuff for a Chromebook. Not a whole huge slew of ports here. Again, this is an affordable machine. Don't expect too much. But that said, one of the nice surprises about this guy is that it actually has a backlit keyboard, something that you don't see very often now. In bright lighting, it's not going to show up, but it's a nice little creature comfort for those of you who want to type in the dark. And again, that's the $329 model that adds the backlit keyboard. It's also a very nice size. Being a 13.3-inch machine, this is a pretty standard size and layout over here. Good key travel on the keyboard. And, you know, for something that's cheap, it has a very tactile and pleasing keyboard. It's not bad to type on. The trackpad isn't bad. Ours actually happens to be defective. Oops, on our particular review unit, but we've used other ones, and it worked just fine. Typical of, well, Chromebooks. They work decently well. The display here, 13.3 inches, 1920 by 1080 IPS with 340 nits of brightness. This is something you just don't see too often on Chromebooks. Usually one of the places where they really fudge on quality is the display, and that does hurt, you know, because you're staring at it all day long. It's not good for your eyes to look at terrible displays, if you can help it, if you can afford it. Even the base model of this, the 249 model, has that 1366 by 768 display. That's not bad. It's better looking than the average Chromebook display. It's glossy, so it is reflective. You can see that a little bit. This is a non-touch display. Viewing angles are good, and our lights are going to make it a little bit harder. And you can see that there's not a huge amount of color shift, so we go pretty far off angle. And for something this cheap, that's perfectly respectable there. If you want to add apps to this, well, you go to the Chrome Web Store right here. And basically, these are browser extensions. So we have photo editors on here. Of course, Google Docs exists, so you can use that as well if you want. Even drawing applications, casual games, that sort of stuff. You can view PDFs. It's basic stuff. This is not for something you're going to deploy in the office for your whole team of salespeople or something like that, because they'll just come and hit you on the head with it, because they're going to need to get more work done than you can probably do here. But for home use, for those people who just do want to write up some Word documents, work on spreadsheets, do a little photo editing, mostly watch videos, look at some pretty photos, it's perfectly up to the job of doing that sort of thing. And this is the Chrome web browser, so you get Chrome and all of its goodness. And this right here is our website, looking just fine. And it's pretty quick to load. And let's just go and take a look at a video review so you can hear the speakers, which have skull candy audio. And look at the page load time there. That was just as fast as any laptop, which is nice. The 199 models that we looked at, believe me, it took some time for web pages to load. It was a little atavistic. And everything looks pretty nice. The color calibration on this is actually fairly good too. It's shockingly good. This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and as promised, this is our pen demonstration for the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Yoga. This is the Lenovo ThinkPad. So again, for the price, not bad at all. And this has 4 gigs of RAM versus 2 gigs of RAM on the most inexpensive of Chromebooks. That means more multitasking, more getting stuff done without noticing it bog down and slow down. So overall, if you're interested in a Chromebook, or if you want to get a Chromebook to run Linux on, which I know some of you do, this guy is certainly very capable as Chromebooks go, with a better than average keyboard, a backlit keyboard, a very good 1920 by 1080 display versus the usual 1366 by 768. The processor on this, it's going to be a Celeron processor, dual core, no matter how you decide to play it. Now, you can get either the older but higher nominal base clock speed, Celeron N at 2840 with this, and that's clocked at 2.16 gigahertz. And that's actually available on the two cheapest models, the 249 and the 299. If you move up a little bit to our 329 model, you get a faster, newer Celeron 3215U. Now, that's a 1.7 gigahertz dual-core CPU. Nominally, that is slower, but it benchmarks faster, significantly faster. So there's where your oomph is going. And again, there is a Core i3, which adds on the whole backlit keyboard, the 1080p display again, and a Core i3 CPU. Still 4 gigs of RAM soldered on board. But I think for most people, honestly, either of the Celerons is going to get the job done. This is as far back as the display goes. Since its IPS viewing angles are good, but you might want to angle it to mitigate glare. Sometimes I did wish it would go a little bit further back just to avoid that, but not that bad. So how about battery life? The more powerful the Chromebook, the higher resolution the display, the lower the battery life. They're known for their good battery life. Toshiba claims 9 hours for the 1080p model, 11 hours if you get the 1366 by 768 model. It has a 3-cell, 44 or 45 watt-hour battery, depending on which variation you get on it. So pretty decent battery capacity. We found that really it's good for about 7 hours of use, which still actually isn't all that bad. For our little 3-pound friend here, that's about all the battery they could fit inside. It takes up most of the internal bottom area, which is not unusual for laptop computers these days. So it's still decent enough in terms of run times. So that's the Toshiba Chromebook 2 CB35, available in a couple of different configurations. And I can tell you, if I was going to buy a Chromebook, I'd probably buy this one. I wouldn't spend lots and lots of money on a Chromebook Pixel. I wouldn't get one of those $199 models if I could afford it, mostly just because the screens are so, and they're kind of slow. This one just has enough little extra pep in it that doing things like web browsing with a couple of tabs open, websites load as quick as they do on your smartphone, which should be a requirement for a laptop. Wouldn't that be nice? The full HD display with actual good color accuracy, it's really nice actually to watch movies, which is something you can do. You can even edit photos on a Chromebook. So you're still living the limited life of a Chromebook, which means everything you do, you're doing with a web browser. But for those of you who like Linux, of course, you can put Linux on it. And despite the limitations, it's still a nice device. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Hit that like button.